one of the things we hear so much, and we see so much in the people we support who have autism, is difficulties with change and the unpredictable. Anything out of routine can cause a visible, tangible sense of distress. Tell me more about that.
Well, you could see that when we get to the film, actually, because Prandre, I get it goes so well with this man that nobody will work with, and I get overconfident and I touch him when he's not looking at me. Yes, exactly. He thumps the chair. It isn't very bad, but I just thump the chair back. So what I do is I confirm that I've taken on board the message.
Acknowledge him.
Actually, he can't cope if I do something when he's not looking. It's this introduction of the unexpected, which is because it floods the brain with processing requirements, which it just can't meet, and that immediately sends the stress sky high. But there is another problem, which is less obvious, and that is the changes which occur within the body during puberty. Anya Ustashevsky, she talks about the changes that occur during puberty. So they are internal changes. Now, I never really thought about this, but as she said, these extraordinary hormonal changes, she didn't want breast, she didn't want pubic hair, she didn't want menstruation. And this whole thing of becoming adult became absolutely, totally dominated to the point of her getting anorexia.
Because that was an attempt to put control on the changes.
It was to stop going into adulthood.
Yes.
But these hormonal changes during puberty cause enormous problems in the boys who say, because they get these hormonal surges, and you get a sudden upsurge of behaviours which, in a child who's been relatively coping up till that time, and suddenly they just feel as if they're being attacked. They use the same words, and therefore they respond as if they're being attacked. And you get these outbursts which don't seem to be related to anything in particular. And people do say, well, while they're going through puberty, it just is absolutely the things that they've been sensitive to up till then, they tend to be far more hypersensitive to then now.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to know exactly what to do about this, except to try and keep their life as quiet as possible and to reduce the amount of pressure and sensory input we're putting on them.
I mean, my goodness, puberty is disturbing enough for everybody.
Yes, quite.
And everybody involved. But just, so much more exaggerated for somebody who's feeling that those changes.
But it's also so unexpected for the people around them, because they can't actually see this.
No.
Everything that we, who are not on the autistic spectrum, experience is magnified for them. And we can't see it. All we can see is behavioural outbursts.
Yes, yeah. One of the sort of changes to routine is choices and being expected to make choices, and it's seen as a very socially acceptable thing to be able, do I want this or that?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. And this is very topical. We're filming this in June 2016. I have a colleague who has a daughter with autism, a very able young woman, and she turned 18 on the 23rd of June, which was the date of the referendum. And she knew this was coming, adulthood was coming, but also on the day that she turned 18, which was presumably going to be a celebration, she got completely overwhelmed in anticipation of the fact that she was going to have to vote. She was going to have to vote for the first time.
Have to make a choice.
And have to make a choice. And so for the preceding month, she's been asking her mother, what's the right way to vote? Now, most of the rest of the UK population has been in that dilemma. Maybe some more than others, and for her it completely overwhelmed the joy of turning 18, because she had to do it right, and she simply couldn't cope with the idea that there wasn't a right way or a wrong way to vote. And something that we take as
totally overwhelming.
Yes, absolutely overwhelming.
And this was a very able
young woman who's currently at college. Studying, she struggles with lots of things in her life,
yes.
And her 18th birthday, sadly overwhelmed by this choice that she had to make. or felt she had to make?
Well, I think the thing is that we really must, this is so dominates the behavioural distress of some people, that we really have to simplify things. And for example, you don't make multiple choices.
Yes.
You say, well, you have this one, and if they don't want it, you offer them something else. And usually they choose the wrong one, which is then you still get your upset. But it's a question of being totally sensitive to their likes and dislikes. And of course there'll be some times when you have to say, I'm sorry, but here's the line, we can't do this. And it doesn't always work. It doesn't work there's a particular problem for people who the two parts of the brain are not communicating. So they will say, we want to go swimming, okay? And you say, well, you can't go swimming because it's the middle of the night. But the want is in the right-hand side, and the reasoning bit is in the left-hand side. So the demand, they can't get through. No matter how much you tell them, look, it's the middle of the night, the place isn't going to be open, so forth.
So the reason has no impact on the want?
Yes, the want is all they feel, really.
Yes.
And so the only way you can do it is you take them to the swimming pool in the middle of the night and show them that the handle is, the place is locked up physically. So they get a physical sensation. Okay.
Is there an easier way of giving them that clarity of information?
No, I don't think there is actually.
No. Well, I mean, that's. I'm just wondering because that's gesture.
I mean,
and actuality.
Yes,
and now I can understand it. Would even a picture of the swimming pool at night time?
It has to be. No. It has to be an external clue, which is very, very. They can tangibly feel.
Yeah.
In my experience. And it, of course, doesn't make it very easy.
No.
We can't go to the zoo today because it's pouring with rain. You have to take them out, and it is pouring with rain, or it's going to be very crowded, and you don't like crowds. Well, we have to take them and show them they don't like crowds and so forth. You're going to get a meltdown there anyway.
Yes, yes. So
this is a very, very difficult situation to deal with.
Yes.
But it does mean that the experience and the desire and the reasoning are separated. Yeah. And for people, I think it's about, I can't remember, it's 20-30% of people have got either damage or separate.
Right.
Separate. It's quite a high proportion. But of course, again, everybody with autism is different.
Yes.
And you have to learn to read that particular individual.
Yes. So you're learning to read the individual. You're learning to understand what might be behind their behaviour, even if you can't make it better. Even if, by taking...
at least you understand.
Yes, at least I understand. So the pressure is off me as a carer or a parent to think, why does he not understand this? Actually, just the acceptance that he can't understand this helps me feel less frustrated and impotent.
Yes, quite.
Yeah.
Yes, you really want to keep choices simple and avoid multiple choice. But one other thing that really upsets people is lots of people in the room because they're moving around and you get such a demand on processing. So changeover can be very difficult in respite homes and because you've got two sets of staff and all the noise and the people talking, and it's very difficult.
Yes. So slightly aside to that is the fact that if I'm going to put somebody in a position where I know that I'm having to ask them to do something that is stressful for them, I want to set them up for success by making sure the environment is as calm and there are as few people around as possible in order to enable them to make that choice or to be introduced to that new piece of information. Yeah. So this gives us more of an understanding as a parent or a carer about what might be going on for the person I'm supporting and their behaviour as it's presenting itself to me. We understand what's going on. So
and I don't use the term challenging behaviour. I'm trying to get people to stop using it because it is always the outcome of sensory distress, sensory overload and sensory distress. It is we who are actually triggering the behaviour. Whether, I mean, we don't mean to,
Mm-hmm.
but by our activities, what we're wearing, with the noise, the sound,
Or expectations.
or
of
the
us.
expectations,
Yeah.
the choices we put them in,
Yeah.
particularly our demands for socially acceptable behaviour, which it's just putting an unbearable strain on the processing system, and that's when you get the challenging behaviour, but which I call distress behaviour.
Because what we're seeing is a result of distress.
Yes, exactly.
It might feel as if that I'm being challenged, but
exactly.
actually it's not. It's nothing to do with me.
No.
It's to do with this person's distress. So,
Yes, exactly.
so it helps me adjust my response to that person if I see it as a symptom of distress
Rather than as a
deliberate
challenge to me.
Yeah. Okay.
I think in the first instance it was coined as being challenging the system, but to cope with.
Yes.
But this is purely a sort of outsider's point of view and takes absolutely no notice of what, no interest in what's going on in the individual. They don't want to go there. They don't. These autonomic storms are extremely painful, and they don't want to go there.
So I would.
We're setting them up to go there if we centrally overload them.